This is the native history of Mount Baker, Komo Kulshan, Part 2. Mount Baker is a stratovolcano that is approximately 400,000 years old, or young if you think of it that way. The Earth is nearly 4 billion years old. The first native inhabitants of the area climbed up to the glacier's peripheries to search for mountain goats. The mountain goat hair was really good for clothing, and of course the meat was good too. This was an important thing throughout human history in the Pacific Northwest. Mountain goats are valued. Though there were many unsuccessful explorations of Mount Baker from a climbing perspective, it was the Englishman Edward T. Coleman who really first made the real successful forays onto the mountain. There were a handful of people who tried some ways, but found that the routes that they were looking at were just too technical. Coleman made several attempts to climb the mountain, but he did so with two native guides. They were Talum and Squawk. And of course, all three of these individuals were so important to the mountain's history that we have the Coleman-Deming route. That's the Coleman route, Coleman Glacier, after Edward T. Coleman. The Deming Glacier is right over here. Coleman-Deming is the standard route on the mountain. And we have the Squawk and Talum glaciers. The Squawk is a variation to the Easton. Coleman-Deming is a standard route. Easton is the other really standard route. Talum, not that many people climb, but he's of course memorialized on the mountain. I should note, of course, that the Easton Glacier, the variation of the Squawk, was named after Charles Finley Easton, who was the head of the Mount Baker Club and really was involved in a lot of the research about the mountain. But let's get back to Squawk and Talum. Coleman's first attempt was unsuccessful. He went up the Skagit River and encountered, this was without Squawk and Talum, went up the Skagit River and encountered some unfriendly natives. It turns out some of the researchers believe that they were actually not local and that they were from Thompson River in Canada and that they were looking to get on Mount Baker to find goats of their own. Coleman would make a couple of more attempts going up the Nooksack River and then Glacier Creek, ultimately finding their way up to a camp. And of course, Squawk and Talum were involved in finding the way, often scouting ahead, sometimes hunting marmots for the team. But Squawk and Talum didn't really go beyond the snow line. It's likely that they had some kind of knowledge of the crevasse hazard, but there were also some stories, some native stories about the mountain. There's a legend that Kulshan got really mad one time and a large part of the mountain fell off and filled the streams with dead fish and brown water. And then Kulshan never got mad again, but there's a possibility that this legend led Squawk and Talum not to want to go too high on the mountain. Finally, in 1868, Coleman and two companions would stand on the summit, but he would have never got there without Squawk and Talum.